it's very important to remember what will shift a supply and demand curve in a standard, perfectly competitive framework. And there are actually quite a few things that will cause a shift. Now, one thing that doesn't cause a shift in the demand or supply is a change in the price. Okay, if we're drawing a supply and demand curve and there's a change in the price, that's a change in the quantity supplied or a change in the quantity demanded. It's a movement along a supply or demand curve, not a shift. Okay, so we're talking about something that's not depicted on the supply and demand curve. We've got price and quantity. This is something that is not either a price or a quantity. It's something that lies behind the scenes. Okay, so here's a partial list of things that might cause a demand curve to shift. 1, the price of a substitute. The price of coffee goes up, there will be an effect on the demand for tea. Hot tea will become a more attractive option if the price the coffee will become a more attractive option if the price of tea rises. Okay, so we can have, and that'll cause a shift of the demand curve at any price for coffee. There will be a shift. More demand for coffee if the price of tea goes up. Okay, the price of a complement. The demand for a good will increase if the price of a complement, something that you buy with that good, if the price of that complement goes down. So price of a complement goes down, the demand for something like this goes up. Okay. If consumers' income changes, if there's a nice boom time, people are having higher incomes, that can shift the demand curve out for a product. If you have an expected price increase in the future for this good, okay, if this good is more expensive, you think this good's going to be more expensive in the future, buy now. So you can have an increase in the demand for the product today if people think that the price of the product will go up in the future. Okay, so you shift demand from it in later periods to today. Okay. Now there are a number of other things that you might include in here, ranging from, I don't know, the uncertainty about the availability of the product, which is actually similar to the expected price. A number of other things that could go into, a shift in demand, but these things certainly will cause there to be a change in the demand curve. Now, I should say that sometimes it's not just a shift, but the slope of the demand curve can change if there's the availability of a substitute. Demand may become more elastic, but we'll save that for a different time. Okay, so what can shift the supply curve? Well, the cost of inputs into making the product. If inputs become more expensive, it makes it more costly to produce this product, supply curve would tend to shift back. If the cost of inputs goes down, then the supply curve shifts out. The cost of making the product is decreased, firms respond accordingly. Okay? Now you can also think of labor as a kind of input, but let's kind of separate it out. If the wages that are paid by the firm, the market wages paid by the firm to hire workers, changes, that can also increase or decrease the cost of doing business. So that can shift things. Technological change can affect the supply curve. If there is a technological improvement that lowers the cost, that shifts the supply curve out. So these are three of the important factors. Well, I should add one more. For agricultural products, weather conditions can have an impact. So if you have a drought, that increases the cost of doing business. The supply curve shifts back. So we've seen this all before, but it's important to remember, how the supply and demand curve will shift as a consequence of these factors. When you start to look at international consequences of various types of shocks, positive or negative shocks, things that affect either someone's desire to buy something or someone's desire to supply something, it's important to know what will shift the curves, because then that leads to understanding what happens to the prices in the market. So critical to have a list of important factors that can cause these shifts to occur.